This is Fitzrovia, London's home to the wild and the decadent, though it has changed a bit in recent years. But the past hangs heavy in the air. You don't need to know anything about its history to sense it, to feel it. In the wheat sheaf, if you listen closely, you can hear the echo of a conversation in Polari. In the shadows of Fitzroy Square, you can see the young Quay twins learning to box. And there is a basement somewhere off these streets that's forever a temple overseen by the Grand Master 666, Aleister Crowley. So where is Fitzrovia exactly?
Originally, the borders were said to be Oxford Street in the south, Euston Road in the north, and then between Portland Place to Gower Street.
What is known as Fitzrovia today, for many, many years after Soho was built and created, it was nothing but fields. It was the fields to the north of Tyburn Way, which became Oxford Street.
By 1750, it would have built up. This was one of the early buildings. This very square.
Fitzrovia wasn't created in the same way that Mayfair was created. Now, Mayfair was created with a clear object, a clear aim, that it still holds to its sterile heart. And good luck to it. Fitzrovia is a sort of hodgepodge, and it always has been a hodgepodge.
Over the years, there's different waves of people from different parts of the world. The Huguenots came very early on. They were thrown out of France. Then there's Italians. Just after the war, quite a lot of Bengalis came over, and that subcontinent of India. And there's a place in Whitfield Street which shows where their first lot set up. But one of the early black areas as well. The Tottenham Court Road was seen as the area before the Second World War. There was quite a few more black people in that area than other parts of London.
The truth of the matter is that a hell of a lot of the artist studios, the poets, the writers, the vagabonds, heavy drinkers and amusing concubines only lived in Fitzrovia because they literally could not afford to live in Soho.
But Fitzrovia is under attack. Things came to a head when property developers acquired the Middlesex Hospital. They knocked it down and proposed to build luxury flats with the name of
grossly, hopelessly incorrect marketing, in my opinion. You can't call somewhere NoHo, it's just not on.
It conjures up a sort of, that terrible world of trendy Hoxton and sort of young Brit-pop types wearing sort of stupid hats, and it's just sort of nauseating. It's Nathan Barley and all that, kind of world.
I think that there are people who move into the area, like the millionaire Candy Brothers, and they intend to build something and just change the name. It's just outrageous, actually.
You'd be going around the extremely expensive hoardings which the Candys had put up, and people had either been taking the top of the H off, so it said no, or adding another bit to the first H, so it said ho. So generally, I think just about everybody in Fitzrovia was against that particular project.
I was born in the Middlesex Hospital 57 years ago, and it's not here anymore. I don't know where it went.
Fitzrovia Noir is an arts group that was formed to document the disappearance of the Middlesex Hospital in central London.
We were the last people to use the space, and it was ended up being quite an emotional experience.
It's a marker moment in history. It became more and more important that what we did justice to the history of the building.
It was such an integral part of the area, it really had to be documented before it disappeared.
Andy and Candy originally bought it and were hoping to turn it into luxury flats and everything, and then it all went bust with Icelandic banks and everything. And they've sold it on for about a third of what they paid for it. And they're going to mothball it for the time being.
When I go past now, and I do often, I feel sad that I can't have an association with it anymore, and that was this magnificent building with this extraordinary history and great emotional attachment from many thousands of Londoners that is now rubble.
The only building on the site is the chapel, and which is a kind of Victorian Byzantine kind of extravaganza, and that has got a preservation order on it, so they can't remove the chapel. But now it's stranded in a big kind of empty site. It may be years before they resolve the building, and the site they may not actually build anything.
We're hoping that in the interim, before the new owners build there, and there's all sorts of rumours flying around as to what they're going to build, that we're just hoping that we can use it for allotments. There's a very serious group of us that want to garden there.
Could it have been kept? Perhaps. The front could have been kept, perhaps, the frontage. The chapel has been kept. But it's gone now, and there's no point in looking back. I think we've got to move forward. And I think we've got to fight for mixed use and for local vernacular architecture.
You risk everything becoming the same, everything looking the same, and the point of preserving some of the old building and environment of London is so diverse that to start pulling it down and making it into something more modern just doesn't really work. That's not what London is. London is the conjunction of all these different styles and all these different times.
If you looked anywhere around the newly developed parts of London, you could be anywhere. Chicago, Dubai, Hamburg. Nothing wrong with those cities, but London must carry on looking like London. And Fitzrovia must, of course, carry on being Fitzrovia. So what's the history of the name?
Charles Fitzroy, who was the Duke of Grafton, and he inherited a whole plot of land, and then in the late 18th century he built Fitzroy Square.
Fitzrovia translates as illegitimate son of royalty. Henry Fitzroy, he was the illegitimate son of Charles II, and he became Lord of the Manor when he married into the daughter of the previous Lord of the Manor, of Tottenham Court. Tottenham Court it was called.
So Fitzrovia was only called Fitzrovia probably since just before the Second World War, and of course that name comes from the Fitzroy Tavern, Fitzroy pub, where all those artists used to go to.
In those crazy Fitzroy Tavern days, on your way to the bar you may very well have bumped into Dylan Thomas, Nina Hamnet, George Bernard Shaw, Augustus John, George Orwell, Elizabeth Smart.
Loads of writers, poets, David. It was weird actually, because it was like a giant ballroom with chairs round the outside where people like Nina Hamnet would sit. And then there was a tiny little snug bar where we used to drink.
And not only were they more louche, but I feel also that there's no question that they were rougher. There's no question that there was more give and take. There was far less attention paid to licensing hours, and there were very few pubs in Fitzrovia that didn't have a life after the licensing hours had ended and the door was slammed and the key turned.
A lot of Soho would move north. So you'd start in the French pub or the Cave de France or the Mandrake Club or the Kismet Club, and then in the middle of the day drift north, and that was a kind of well-trodden route since the 30s that artists and writers used to take.
The next stop on our Fitzrovian pub crawl is the Wheatsheaf, which took over from the Fitzroy Tavern as the artist hangout in the 1940s. It was the haunt of writer Julian McLaren Ross. Commercial success eluded him in his lifetime, but his legacy has endured, and he's now regarded as the epitome of the spirit of the free-drinking Fitzrovian artist.